Welcome to the Ink to Film podcast, where we read the book.
And then see the movie.
I'm Luke.
And I'm James.
And this week we take a look back at all the projects we covered in 2017.
Pictures up, last looks.
Coming to you from the den in my father's house in Florida. Here we are, first time together and face to face.
Yeah, man, it's good to see you. We were talking about it. We started a business together, and this is the first time we've seen each other in the flesh.
Yeah, it's pretty amazing. Also, we're super cramped and huddled around a mic, so it might sound a little different. If so, that's why. But yeah, we figured this is gonna be a little bit more of an informal episode than we usually do. It's going to be, we're going to do a retrospective. We're going to look back at some of the projects we did this year. And we're going to address feedback from people that we didn't get to.
Yeah, it's just to have listeners send in feedback is a big deal, and missing out on that and not talking about some of the stuff that we potentially either didn't see or didn't think about. It just kind of adds a lot to it.
Yeah, and we just want to make sure that we get to everything. And since they took the time to write us, we want to show that we appreciate that. We also got a bunch of questions from people. We reached out and people stepped up and sent us questions, so that's been great. And we're gonna go through some of those, probably at the end of the episode, second half at least, and talk about that. So that should be super fun, and I'm excited to do it. Oh, before we do, I wanted to say we're gonna have light spoilers for basically everything we've talked about this year. We're gonna try not to go crazy and say anything big. If we are going to say anything big, we'll definitely give you a warning so that you can fast forward. But for the most part, yeah, just light spoilers for Howl's Moving Castle, The Thing, Die Hard,
Blade Runner,
yeah.
So if those projects, the books and novels, if you haven't finished those and you're worried about spoilers, maybe finish those, come back to this, or like we say, it will be light spoilers. I think only one that we're really going to go deep into is the Blade Runner. There might be some very spoilerific stuff in there. So if you haven't seen that movie yet, there will be probably 5 minutes or so you can skip.
Okay, let's, I think I'm ready to launch right back into this missed feedback. All right, so first up, my own father sent us some feedback that we didn't read, and he let me know about it over the Christmas break here. So we're gonna get to it now. This was about the original. Actually, no. This was sent to us while we were reading "Do Androids Dream of Electric Sheep," right before we saw the original Blade Runner. Yeah, by Philip K. Dick. He said the second cop/bounty hunter in the movie is much different, but he has a paper origami squirrel that he leaves each time he kills an Andy or replicant. Also, you guys keep saying that there are no false animals. However, there are many in the movie: birds, cats, and they are just in different scenes. The relationship between the cops is strong, but they are distant.
Yeah, so I think what he's talking about is in our coverage of the novel, there was a lot of electric animals that were being specifically talked about as social status items and stuff. And I didn't remember how many electric animals were actually in the Blade Runner film. I remembered the snake, but other than the snake, I didn't remember the owl and a few other things.
Yeah, at one point they go to the market and there's a bunch of them. Although I don't know that it's explicit that they're all electric, but now that we've read the novel, we know that they are, right?
Right. We do see the owl's eyes, and so yeah, he was totally right about that, and that's something that we missed. As far as the second bounty hunter, I believe he's talking about Gaff from the film.
I think so.
So Gaff, he does in the film, he leaves behind origami for people, and as we see it happening, he keeps leaving origami behind for people who we either know or believe to be androids. And I was talking to you about this a little bit, especially in our episode. We kind of touched on it, but what I think this is Gaff. So in my interpretation of the film, so spoilers, guys. Sorry, we are covering Blade Runner here, so we're going to get into spoilers right off the bat. I believe Rick Deckard is a replicant, and the reason behind this is because at the end of the movie, Gaff leaves behind a origami unicorn, and that origami unicorn harkens back in the final cut to Rick Deckard's dream of a unicorn when he's sleeping. And so I think the implication is Gaff has seen the dreams that were created for these Andes or replicants, and he's leaving behind origami animals that they see in their dreams. So if he's leaving behind a squirrel, maybe that replicant had seen a squirrel in their dream, and he's seen their dreams because they're false memories. They're not real, and that some sort of system system has all of the dreams in it to be implanted into replicants.
Yeah, I like that. He wrote in again also about Blade Runner, so I'll just read that now. He said, I watched the movie tonight again. It was the final cut version. I noticed lots of items in common with The Fifth Element, Star Wars, and the video game Fallout, which he's a big fan of. He says, the rain, trash, flying cars, and the Asian people and food all reminded me of The Fifth Element. The other feel is the aspect of new old. High-tech items that appear to be old and run down is very Fallout-like. Also, all the smoking in many of the first scenes is a mix of 60s and 80s stuff projected into a future that is very interesting. Yeah, I think he's talking about like the noir aspects there, especially with the smoking. That's directly from the noir inspirations for Blade Runner.
Definitely, yeah. It's like smoky rooms with harsh lighting and very noir-esque, and the dirty sci-fi that he's talking about there with the Fifth Element, with the rain, and nothing's very clean. It's not the slick Star Trek sci-fi. It's that used up, dirty sci-fi. Yeah,
and we talk about this a lot, but other than with the exception of maybe Star Wars, everything he listed was made after this movie. So in fact, what you're seeing is the effect of Blade Runner, like the legacy of Blade Runner, and how it affected like a video game like Fallout, and it affected a movie like The Fifth Element. So yeah,
definitely good points. Like that's the aesthetic that he's talking about there is something that I think is like one of the greatest parts of Blade Runner.
Now I think we have some more feedback about Blade Runner that you got there.
Yeah, we got something sent in by Zaron.
And this is about the new one, right?
This is about 2049, so this is major spoilers because it's a lot more recent. If you haven't seen Blade Runner 2049, this will have spoilers for that.
Yeah, skip ahead 5 minutes, and you'll be safe.
The feedback says, I've had a heated debate going on whether or not Rick Deckard is a replicant, because Jared Leto says something along the lines of, how do you know you weren't made to show up at that time and fall in love with Rachel at that exact moment so that you could get together and make life? But Harrison Ford responds, I know what's real. I took this to mean Harrison Ford knows he's not a replicant. I felt that it was being proposed that cross-species, replicant human, life had begun. Also, as an afterthought, it's intriguing to see Ridley Scott executive produce 2049 instead of direct it. I wonder why. Also, how amazing was Joy the AI?
Amazing. There's a lot of interesting points there, and I do think that is another unanswered question at the end of that film, and it's open to interpretation whether or not you think Deckard indeed is an android, and that's what we have. We have these hybrids, or if it's android and android, depending on if he's human or not.
I love what Denis Villeneuve did with Blade Runner 2049 because he made 2049 with such a loving touch, and he approached it in a way that he didn't sully the reputation of the original film. So, like I said before, my interpretation of the original film is that Deckard is a replicant. But in 2049, Denis Villeneuve brought up many new points that made me believe that he is actually a human. So he was able to convince me that I didn't know whether he was a replicant or a human. So he effectively just changed all of the theories that I had, and I don't know, he did such a great job, and I think that what Zaron is saying here is definitely true. Like Harrison Ford is saying he knows what's real, and I think he knows that he is a human. After all these years, he's aged and become this old man that's off on his own.
Yeah, and you could argue that that's just that he thinks he's a human. Mm-hmm. And I think that we can say for sure is it seems that he believes he's a human.
Right. And that's another thing that Denis Villeneuve brought up in 2049, and it doesn't matter. And I guess the original also offered up that question, but it doesn't matter.
Well, it's the whole thing's about blurring the lines between humanity and replicant. So, yeah, I think it at the heart of the question is, does it matter? I think that falls in line. Now, he also asked about Ridley Scott. Do you know anything about that?
So, I was listening to an interview, actually another podcast that I really enjoy. It's the Directors Guild podcast, and they have directors interview directors who are in the Directors Guild. And Rian Johnson, the director of Star Wars Episode 8, was interviewing Denis Villeneuve for Blade Runner. And he said that Ridley Scott had other projects going on, and Harrison Ford really wanted the project to get done. So apparently Harrison Ford pushed it into production. And so I think Ridley Scott reached out and kind of handpicked Denis Villeneuve and was like, please, I know how much you enjoy this. I guess they've had talks before or something, and they approached him with a script, and Denis kind of, I think he ended up writing his own version of it, and the rest is history.
That's cool. All right, so let's move on. Now, I got a nice bit of feedback for The Thing. So let's go ahead and address that one now because it came to us a little bit late. We didn't get to talk about it. So the person who wrote in wants to be called a fan from Yonkers, New York. So that's what we'll call him. He says, maybe you guys mentioned this and I missed it, but one thing that's worth noting out re Carpenter's The Thing is that it's a remake. So is indebted to the Campbell source material, he is also indebted to The Thing from Another World. The 51 film is definitely worth looking at if you get a chance. It was billed as a Howard Hawks production, even though he didn't direct it. Hawks was huge in Hollywood, but he's one of those directors, not unlike Hitchcock, who was overlooked by critics, even though his peers had nothing but praise and respect for the guy. Not unlike John Carpenter himself, I guess you could say. I've seen John Carpenter's version dozens of times. I thought Kurt Russell was so friggin' cool. The way he killed the computer was something, and like his misidentifying the Swedes. He was a don't give a fuck kind of dude. Not exactly politically correct, but you want him running the show when the excrement collides with the ventilation device. Again, love listening to you guys talking about a film I love too, especially love the insight about viewing the film as a quasi-Western retelling of the and the chess motifs. So, a lot there. Mm-hmm. Anything you want to react to?
Boy, I mean, I love that film, and the 1951 version is definitely, Carpenter definitely was inspired by that, and there's so much to be said for that. And
so have you seen it?
I have, yeah, a long time ago, when I was in school.
I haven't seen it.
It is kind of a creature feature, like it's a creature film more than the paranoia of the Carpenter film. Howard Hawks, there's a lot of things that went on, but he was a behemoth during this time period, and he's not credited as the director of this film, even though he did direct this film.
He did?
Yeah, he directed apparently, according to the cast, he directed like all but one scene.
Oh.
And so, but there's a lot of politics and all the things that went on with the huge major studios back then. I think it was RKO, and it's definitely a timepiece of that era.
Yeah, man. And, I mean, he said it right. There's a lot of chess motifs. It's quasi-Western. And, I think he just hit the nail on the head there, so...
Definitely. Oh, we should also mention, this is a great episode that we had with Mike Arnzen.
Oh, it was great. Yeah. Big thank you to him for doing that with us and for talking with us. Because, I thought that was an excellent episode that I really enjoyed.
He brought a lot to that episode.
Two episodes, I should say. We split it into two parts.
We split it into two parts. He brought a lot to it. He had... this quasi-Western and the chess motifs, like I believe he brought up both of those points, and those are great points.
Those are right from him.
Yeah.
All right, next up, I think you got a Howl's Moving Castle one, right?
Yeah, we got a Howl's Moving Castle feedback from Caitlin. She says,
this is about the book.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. So Michael and Howl are both in love with Letty Hatter, but we don't know which one. Either way, they're both younger than Sophie, who is only 17, right? It makes sense for Michael, who is 15, but how old is Howl supposed to be exactly? Ancient? Does it say? Because yucky.
That's a good point. I honestly didn't think about it.
Yeah.
But he is older.
It's weird because it's like that vampire thing, right? It's like the like sexualized like vampire who doesn't age, and like you see him as like this in like stories. He's like an old man, but he's like attractive within the context of the story.
Now, is he old in the book? Because in the book, spoiler for the book, if you want to skip ahead, there's like a whole thing where he goes through the portal and they're in our world.
Mm-hmm. Weird.
And it was unclear like how long he had been in the fantasy world.
Well, his family is still alive and they're just humans. So you would think that he would be of whatever age.
So I think that might be more of a movie thing with him being ageless.
Yeah.
Or seeming that way. I think in the book he actually is a steady age, and I think it's like I want to say 30s.
He
Low
is still
30s,
too old for
maybe
her.
late 20s.
Yeah.
Obviously still too old for a 17-year-old, but the age of consent's 16 in England, not 18.
I thought you were going to say in Howl's Moving Castle. I was like, the specifics.
Well, the writer is English.
Yes.
So for her, it might be less taboo to have a 17-year-old.
Yeah.
In a relationship with a 27. So that might be it. It's a good point. Definitely worth thinking about. A little icky if you really look into it. All right, so that's it for the feedback. I think we've covered all the ones we missed.
Yeah, there was other feedback that we read within the episodes and stuff as people sent it. So this was just stuff that we missed, and any questions people sent, we're also going to touch on now.
Yeah. So speaking of that, let's launch into it. A listener named Mila sent us a bunch of questions actually, so I thought we'd just run through them. A bunch of good ones.
Yeah.
So I'll hit you with this one. Would you ever consider a classic romance like Pride and Prejudice or Jane Eyre for one of your projects? Personally, I would love to see you gentlemen tackle Wuthering Heights. As a personal favorite of mine, I do not understand how it has the classic romance label as sometimes given. It's such a satisfying, dark, mystery horror novel in my eyes. It's full of emotionally disturbed, vengeful, self-absorbed, monstrous characters, and so many layered surprises. What a page turner!
I mean, that's me all over. Like, I would love to read that novel.
You've never read it?
No, I've never read it.
Have you read any of those novels?
No. I read part of Pride and Prejudice, but I've seen Pride and Prejudice and Jane Eyre as films.
Yeah, I definitely read Wuthering Heights. I think I was in middle school. Mm-hmm. Didn't appreciate it.
Really? Yeah.
And I think that might be due to my age. Like, I might enjoy it more now. I think for a lot of those movies, I would probably want some sort of modern retelling to bring me to it. But I don't know, like if we wanted to do a Pride and Prejudice thing that's popular, it could be fun. A
lot of them, there's been, every once in a while, these movies get remade. Like, I know there's a couple, like, versions of Pride and Prejudice. I think there's a couple Jane Eyre. So
I know there's Pride and Prejudice and Zombies.
Yeah, I've seen that.
But that's based off of a novel of the same name.
Yeah.
But it might be interesting to compare the farcical version compared to the original.
How similar are they?
I don't know. I haven't read them.
Well, maybe we check that out. I think I would like to do. I'm definitely hoping at some point we do some of these like classic romance drama-esque novels and films, just because it's some like I feel like typically we lean into genre, and I like always appreciate just anything from almost any genre. So just.
Yeah, if you wonder why we chose so many genre films, we're both genre guys, so we tend to lean into that. So we're probably always going to do a lot of fantasy, sci-fi, horror, that kind of thing. But we're open for anything. You know?
Oh, absolutely, yeah. And like that's not to say like I don't love a good drama.
Sure,
I don't love a good. Yeah. I'm completely looking forward to the day that we do something that's one of these classic romance novels.
Yeah, I mean, I guess I would say in general, I feel like we've only really scratched the surface for like things we're gonna do. Mm-hmm. Like we just have so many things we want to do with this podcast. So stay tuned for that for sure.
So the next question is, can you tell us more about your backgrounds? You've mentioned Luke has more of a literary background and James has more of a film background. Can you elaborate?
Sure. I mean, I'll start. We mentioned it in like the first episode, but I realized that not everybody listens to that, so I'll talk about it again. Sure. I have an agent. He's shopping a novel out right now. It's been going a little while, and in the meantime, I'm working on a sci-fi novel that I'm hoping to get to him soon. And I should say I have a bachelor's degree in writing fiction from University of Florida, and I have a master's degree in writing popular fiction from Seton Hill University. Both great schools, great programs. Had a lot of fun. Learned a lot. And, I just sold a short story to a magazine called Metaphorosis. I don't know when it's going to be out yet, but I will definitely let you guys know on the podcast when you can check it out.
Definitely, man. Congratulations on that, too.
Thanks.
I'm really looking forward to reading that.
Yeah, I'm excited.
So my background is in film. I have a bachelor's degree in telecommunications and a minor in film and media studies.
UF.
At University of Florida.
Yeah.
I recently graduated about a year ago now. I'm currently working in the industry. I'm doing post-production work. About a year ago, I directed a short film. Just trying to get out there, get in the industry. Tread Carefully.
Okay.
Yeah. I'm hoping to get onto some bigger sets and start doing some larger films. I'll keep you guys posted.
Okay, cool. Let's move on to the next one. Number 3 here. Who are your favorite authors, directors?
Oh, yeah. Such a huge question to ask. I guess
Authors first.
you start authors and then I'll follow up.
Okay. Well, I have a feeling we're gonna be similar about this. I mean, there are so many of them. It's like almost impossible to list them all. George R. R. Martin is a huge inspiration for me. He got me back loving fantasy after I'd kind of fallen out of love with it. Stephen King is a master. He's amazing. I love his stuff. Kurt Vonnegut is brilliant, and I love his books. Ray Bradbury. I even like literary stuff, like Laurie Moore writes some beautiful, beautiful things. So I mean, I'm all over the place. It's hard to pick any one person, honestly.
Yeah, anytime I'm asked to give lists, it's always such a struggle for me. Like it's so hard. But as far as authors are concerned, I grew up loving fantasy, so my early days were reading Harry Potter books, and so J.K. Rowling has a special place in my heart. I love George R. R. Martin. I love a lot of the fantasy, like Tolkien. I heavily lean into that kind of thing. So yeah, and then on to directors, which is the hardest part for me. Yeah. So I mean, we can pick an era, and I'll pick a bunch of.
Do you want me to start?
Directors, and no, yeah, you go ahead and start, and then I'll just follow.
I'll just list a few. Mm-hmm. Christopher Nolan, I think, is one of my favorite current working directors. He's amazing. I love Tarantino. I feel like he's a very hit or miss for people kind of director, and you say what you will about certain movies, but I just love him. I think he's really unique, and whenever he comes out with a movie, I don't know, I'm in the theater.
Definitely.
And then other than that, Fincher and Coen Brothers, same thing. I'm gonna see it.
Yeah, all those guys, anything they make, I watch. Each of them is so. I mean, the way Christopher Nolan is he's the guy who's pushing film stock to keep shooting on film and all that thing, and to keep the old ways still in effect is amazing. And Tarantino's the same way.
Yeah.
Tarantino's an amazing vision and auteur. He's got everything he wants right there. Fincher is one of the most meticulous directors out there. Coen Brothers are amazing. Like I said before, I could pick an era and just pick 10, 20 out of each one. But for me, there's the likes of P.T. Anderson. Anything he comes out with, I will see. Kurosawa, I've studied all of his films. Kubrick, same way.
Yeah.
Spielberg, your Hitchcocks, there's some more contemporary guys that I'm really keeping an eye on right now, like Denis Villeneuve, amazing. Edgar Wright, Taika Waititi. These guys are all just unbelievable, visionaries.
That's probably good.
Yeah. Next question goes along with the last one. If you had the opportunity to have anyone you wanted on the show as a guest, who would it be? So I'm assuming we can go as outlandish as possible.
All right. So I kind of took this two ways. Yes, if I could have anyone on, probably Stephen King or George R. R. Martin, somebody like that, just a legend who would come on and we get him 2 million downloads.
Can you imagine having Stephen King come on for the Shining episode that we eventually do?
It would be insane. We'd make national news.
It would be absolutely bonkers.
But in that same vein, it doesn't even have to be someone who's as huge a name as that. But I would love to have someone on who wrote the book that we covered.
Oh God,
that is being adapted into the movie we're going to cover. That's really my dream, and that could be anybody. You know what I mean? It doesn't matter, even if they're new. I just would love to have that.
Definitely. Yeah, I'm kind of the same way. If we're going out of the realm of possibilities, if we could get a Martin Scorsese on here,
yeah,
that guy. He is a film encyclopedia.
Maybe back to back with our Stephen King episode.
Exactly. He's seen every movie. He knows everything about it. He knows everybody. He knows everything. It would be absolutely amazing to have him come on. I actually saw the other day, it was the same Directors Guild podcast. It's more of a Q&A after a screening of a film, so they're there already and they just record the audio. But it is a podcast where they release this. So Martin Scorsese was on a podcast recently.
So it should be a slam dunk.
Yeah, it sounds like if I just give him a phone call, he'll be here. And then anybody, I would love to have some of the people that I've met in the industry and coming up at school come on, talk about film. Like you said, it would be a dream come true to have somebody who directed a film or was involved in the process of making a film come on and talk about the process of adapting a film. Would just be...
Yeah, I just want to say in general, having more guests on is something I want to do. And even if it's just writers I know and people that you've met in the industry, I'm excited for any guests we're going to have on. I know that's lame, but I really am. I think it's going to be a lot of fun. I hope that we do more of that going forward.
I mean, we had a guest on and it was
it was awesome.
It was amazing.
Yeah. Thanks, Mike.
Thank you, Mike.
Yeah, next up, she says, Luke, you mentioned being a dog lover a few times. What kind of dogs do you have? And then James, any pets? So I'll start, I guess. I have 2 dogs. I have a corgi named Tyrion. Speaking of George R. R. Martin,
Mm-hmm.
he's an awesome little guy. Tricolor, has his tail for people who know about corgis. We chose not to get it docked. And then my other dog is amazing mix that we got, who is a rescue. Her name's Nymeria, also from Game of Thrones. Kind of more of a deep cut.
Do you like Game of Thrones?
A little bit. And she's super sweet, and she was the run of the litter, really malnourished, and we got her. She was tiny, like 5 pounds. And then she just exploded. And now she's like over 50. She's got big, so she's great. She's beautiful. She's a husky German Shepherd, Chow Australian cattle dog mix, and she just looks like a big fox.
Yeah, she's a good looking dog. She's like she's got that like calico kind of thing, right? Where it's like different.
You got to come up to Portland so you can meet her.
Yeah, I've never met her. I have met Tyrion though. He's a fun little guy. So I have a couple pets actually. We have Zelda, who I currently live with. She's a little black lab. She's super sweet, very nice. Just super loyal dog. And then back home with my parents, we have a dog and a cat. Bella, our cat, kind of a brat, but she listens to me a lot, and she really likes cuddling up with me. And then our other dog, Abby, who is the sweetest dog. She just like will put her head up to your hand and force you to pet her. She's like, I need pet now.
Yeah.
So the next question is the last and most important question I have is this. What did you think of The Last Jedi? I would love to hear your thoughts on the movie. So,
yeah, let's get controversial here.
I mean, I don't mind getting controversial because I've seen the film twice. We actually saw it together very recently, a couple days ago.
If you follow our Instagram, I think I posted a picture, or maybe it was Twitter, of us at the theater seeing it. That was my first time seeing it, only a few days ago. So anything I say comes with the caveat of I want to see it again to really solidify my opinion, because I'm someone who likes to see, especially like a Star Wars movie, like I need to see it a couple times before I really decide how I feel about it. But yeah, lead off.
I mean, I as somebody who watched these movies every single day, like just endlessly, like it's like you have a certain level of expectation going into a Star Wars film, and after the prequels and what they did for the franchise and what they did not do for the franchise, there's a lot of expectations on these new films. But I really, 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 really recommend you see this movie if you haven't. I loved it. There's a lot of controversy going on, and I think it's a lot of expectations weren't met. Which I will say, in my opinion, is a good thing, because
subverted sometimes.
Yeah, if Star Wars is to continue and if we're going to get a movie every year, it has to innovate. It has to do something different. And like you said, Rian Johnson at every turn, almost every turn, subverted your expectations, and he delivered. I don't want to get into too many spoilers or anything, but he delivered a great film. Really well made, and you can tell it's a fan's Star Wars film, but it's also drawing from the things that inspired George Lucas, like your Kurosawas and it's amazing.
Yeah, I think that's the thing. We don't want to spoil it. Yeah. It's surprising, which I honestly can't remember the last time I can say that about a Star Wars movie. And yeah, I mean, I don't know. I really enjoyed it. I've read a lot of the criticism, and I can see where people are coming from. I don't know if I agree with it, though. Honestly, I'm not someone who gets an idea in my head about what I think something should be and needs to be. And I think that's where people get themselves into trouble, is they've already written this movie before they saw it. And when it didn't live up to the movie they wrote in their head, they got angry. And sometimes, that's just the nature of fandom.
Mm-hmm. Well, I mean, and if Rian Johnson had delivered the movie that those people wanted, they would not have been happy with it, in my opinion.
Or even if they were, that doesn't mean everybody would be happy. Because people like me who I love Star Wars, but I wouldn't consider myself a fanatic. Mm-hmm. And I am the kind of person who will get bored if every Star Wars movie starts to become extremely, like if we got another Force Awakens, I can start to get bored if I see a formula being repeated over and over again.
Definitely. I mean,
this one wasn't, so that was what was cool about it.
Still enjoyed Force Awakens, but
yeah,
it was definitely derivative. There's no doubt about that. Everybody
and I'm really glad this one wasn't, because at a certain point, everybody's got their own breaking point, and I did not want to see that same movie again.
Me either. Go see it, guys, if you haven't.
Yeah.
And if you have seen it, send us a message on Twitter.
Tell us how wrong we are. Yell at us. I don't care. It's fine. Send us a message. We'd love to hear from you anyway. Mm-hmm. Let's stop and talk about Audible.
Yeah. So if you haven't heard in any of our episodes before this, we actually have an Audible affiliate link. It's audibletrial.com/ink2film. And what you get with that is 30 free days to Audible and 1 free credit for a novel in their collection, audiobook.
Yeah, and instead of pointing out one particular title, I wanted to mention that right now Audible has a big sale going on through the end of January 1st. And what it is, so you could use our link, get a free credit. And then right now, they have a big list of popular novels that you can select from, and you can get 2 of them for 1 credit. So right now, our deal is actually even better. If you've been waiting, now's your chance. You can get 2 books for 1 credit. And this is a good list. I mean, they have like thrillers and mysteries and all kinds of sci-fi and fantasy. You have to just go look at the list yourself, honestly. It's a good list. I honestly might take it up on it because there's some good stuff on there I've been waiting to get.
Yeah.
So
if you have a credit, use it now because you're getting 2 for 1. So.
That's right. Yeah. All right. And that link is audibletrial.com/ink2film. All right. Next up, we have Jeff wrote in. He has a few questions for us. Let's start with this one. Which podcast episode has been your favorite to record? I'm going to hit you first.
I really enjoyed having a guest on. Mike Arnzen came on for the thing. He brought so much to it. He teaches horror classes. He at Seton Hill, right? So he knows his stuff. He loves it. He's a horror writer as well. So it was so much fun to have him come on. And the thing is such a fantastic, project to have worked on.
That was my answer too, and specifically because he says favorite to record. Mm-hmm. Like having conversations with Mike it's always so much fun. Mm-hmm. So I just enjoyed the hell out of that whole process. So yeah, that's my answer too.
Yeah, I will also say that I feel like I had a really good time with you and I really diving into Blade Runner 2049. Also,
absolutely, that was in my top ones too to go between. Okay, so he also asks, do you have any plans to attempt Lord of the Rings?
My answer or your answer?
Go ahead.
Absolutely. Yeah. We have to, because the Lord of the Rings, I read those novels cover to cover so many times, and the Fellowship of the Ring, not to say that all 3 of them aren't amazing, because that is probably one of my favorite, I would say my favorite trilogy of all time. And that's hard to say. And it's just so well made, so well crafted. It's Peter Jackson at his best. And the Fellowship of the Ring, when people ask me what my favorite films are, Fellowship of the Ring always makes the list.
Well, I'm putting my foot down. We're not doing it. I'm just kidding.
No. I'll do solo episodes.
No, I would love to do it. And especially that original trilogy. I mean, I don't know about The Hobbit. I don't know if we'd ever do that, but
I love the novel of The Hobbit.
Yeah, I love
it a lot too, and I absolutely adore that. But the films were we can get into that. We'll have a whole another episode. If we do that, we'll talk about it.
Yeah, so if we do one of these, we can always mention the other ones as just part of it.
Right.
But yeah, I think just logistically, they're big books, they're big movies. So we would have to have a big enough span of weeks where we know we weren't doing something else. And I would say we would start with Fellowship. We'd probably do that as its own block, and then we would probably move on to other projects and then return later to do Two Towers.
Right.
So that's I think the way we would do it.
I will say a lot of people have asked also if we will do Harry Potter, and we're still thinking about it. I think I would because I am such a huge fan. I think I would like to, but we worry that it's such an undertaking. There's so many books, so many films, and our podcast could become the Harry Potter podcast. So
yeah, so many podcasts. I should tell you, I actually didn't mention this, and you just reminded me. When I was at PodCon, I heard about a podcast. It was there. The person was there. Mm-hmm. It was called Harry Potter and the Sacred Text. Mm-hmm. Have you heard of this podcast?
No.
So they go chapter by chapter. I'm doing a big shout out to them, but whatever. Check them out. They're another literary podcast. Do it. They go chapter by chapter and they read Harry Potter like it's the Bible or the Quran, and they try and extrapolate out from it like it's a holy text.
That's awesome, man. I didn't even know that existed. Now I'm gonna go listen.
It's super popular. This is my problem with Harry Potter. And we get a little bit of that Lord of the Rings too. It's so covered. You know, if people really wanted to hear our take on it, I'm down to do it. Mm-hmm. But on the other hand, it's that's something that's so saturated right now That's the only con is that we're competing with a podcast like that is, that's their whole thing.
Is being, yeah.
Yeah.
At the end of the day, that franchise means so much to me. I could see us doing it eventually. I will say that there's probably a good chance we'll eventually do it. It's just about when and where.
Yeah. All right. He actually has another question, but I think I'm going to save it to the very end. So hit me with the next one.
All right. This comes from Caitlin. She says, "What has been your favorite and least favorite book?"
I think for me, as far as books go, I guess I'm going to have to go with Nothing Lasts Forever, the book that inspired Die Hard. I'm really glad I read it though. Like, it's weird because it's a book I'm super glad I read. It's one of the books I said on the podcast we recorded for it. It's one of the reasons I did this whole show was I found out Die Hard was based off a novel and I was really curious about it. And I love the fact that I've read that novel now and I can talk about it. I think it's really cool. But if we want to break it down and say best book that you just enjoy reading, it's probably my least favorite. Mm-hmm. Favorite? It.
Mm-hmm. So, I mean, I had the exact same answers.
Really?
Yeah, I did.
I didn't know you were going to say that.
Yeah, Nothing Lasts Forever for me. It was a fun read. It was just, it didn't quite grab me like the others did that we were reading. Like, I get really invested in characters, and I liked the novel. I enjoyed it. There was a lot to be said for it, but at the end of the day, it was, if I had to choose a least favorite, it was my least favorite. And I don't know, it just wasn't of the same caliber. We read some really good books. And then my favorite is It, and it was our first project.
Yep.
We did it in 5 parts. The movie came out right around that time that we finished, and then we did a movie episode on it. And I mean, that is an epic novel.
Yeah.
Like, I hadn't read it, and it really was so much fun. And Stephen King, I will read anything Stephen King writes, although he's written a ton of stuff, so that's a huge undertaking.
I mean, I think there are whole podcasts devoted to his work, and
I'm sure
it would be easy to let this one become that. So,
mm-hmm.
But yeah, I think part of the reason I enjoyed that novel so much, even though I was rereading it, is that it was our first project. So I also there's a lot tied up there with starting the podcast, which I've just had so much fun doing.
Mm-hmm.
And it was all new, at the time. And but yeah, also, I mean, he's an amazing writer, and I think that's an amazing novel. So yeah, if you want to check that out, those old episodes are there. They're all raw and waiting for you to come listen to them. Mm-hmm. Next up, Caitlin asked what our favorite and least favorite adaptations are to film. So I'm gonna let you start.
All right, leading off with the films, I'm gonna start off with least favorite. My least favorite, I think, will surprise you. It was It.
It was It.
It was It, because I had to choose between all of the amazing films that we've done, and I mean, it's one of my favorite movies of this year. But we've covered the likes of The Thing, Blade Runner, which are 2 of my favorite films. Period.
Yeah.
Blade Runner 2049 was such a step up. Not up from the original, but it was like it was more than I expected, which is saying something because the original meant so much to me.
Probably my favorite movie of the year.
Yeah. Howl's Moving Castle was there. It's amazing, man. Hayao Miyazaki, you can't count him out. Die Hard is such a fun. I went between Die Hard and It. And I just chose It because it's so new that I feel like maybe if I watch it a few more times, it'll get up there. But I felt like it was right there, and I just had to choose one of them. So
should I do my least favorite now, or do you want to give your favorite?
Do your least favorite.
Okay. So my least favorite, this is so hard to choose, but I went with Howl's Moving Castle. And I think it's because it's not my favorite Miyazaki film. Like, mm-hmm. my favorite's Spirited Away. Mm-hmm. And I still I think Spirited Away is better. Mm-hmm. But man, like, it's the same thing you were just saying. Like, I loved everything we did so much, and like that won't always be the case. I know that's not going to always be the case.
Eventually, we have to do something bad so that we can, when somebody asks us again, we can be like, "Oh, this is a stinker." Yeah,
but I genuinely love every film we watched for the podcast, and that includes Howl's Moving Castle. It was closer to being my number one. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. Like, it's wild that. But if I had to pick, I think it's that, and it's because there are just certain parts in that movie, that drag a little, maybe. I don't know. There's something about it, maybe because it's anime instead of live action. As beautiful as it is, like, I've never felt like someone who connects with anime as much as other people do.
Yeah.
I guess I have to choose that, but I cringe even saying it.
Yeah, it's so tough to say. I don't know.
All right, favorite. Let's
get out of here.
Palate cleanse.
Favorite that we've covered. So this is also extremely tough because we've covered, like I just said, so many amazing things. Blade Runner, The Thing, Blade Runner 2049, Howl's Moving Castle. If I had to choose my favorite, film that we've covered is Blade Runner, original 1982. And it's just because like I've always loved that film, and that is one that has always stood the test of time. And if anything, it's been heightened by Blade Runner 2049. And I don't know, that movie's so timeless, and it molded so much of what I'm so interested in. You know what I mean? Within that genre vein, sci-fi, it's awesome.
Well, I've already said how close everything was. And honestly, I was really close to choosing Blade Runner 2049. And I don't know if I've told you this, but I think I might even prefer that to the original Blade Runner, which might be harsh to say, but like I really like them both. It's so hard.
Yeah.
But I just loved that new one. But honestly, that's not my answer. I think my answer is The Thing.
Mm-hmm.
That is just like, I think part of it is because it stood the test of time.
Mm-hmm.
And every time I go back and watch it, it blows me away. And I think talking with Mike about it, my appreciation for it really grew even more.
Mm-hmm.
And so when I think back about the best adaptation, when honestly you take a novella that could have been my choice for least favorite because it has some problems.
Mm-hmm.
Who goes there? But you take a novel and you adapt it so brilliantly into what John Carpenter did. Like that's my choice for best adaptation.
Yeah, I mean I can't fault you for that. That's one of my favorite movies. So good choice. All right, next up, in your experience, what were some of the biggest challenges in starting this podcast? You want to start off?
Yeah, for me, it's been just hearing my own voice and having to figure out how to talk in a way that's like people can understand, and having better habits on mic. And I hope that that's something I've gotten a little better at over time. But that's just something that I had to, I'm continuing to work on, and has been probably the biggest struggle for me is to listen to myself and have to think critically about the way I talk.
Yeah,
it's tough.
I would say the hardest thing for me is the size of the edits sometimes.
Yeah.
When we get into like our 3-hour recordings and we got to cut that down, it's tough and it's long, but it's funny because you got to be as meticulous as possible while also being a casual medium. It's a podcast. So
yeah.
It can be tough, but it's part of a podcast is having some sort of edit, and we wanted our podcast to be a little more professionally edited than just we recorded ourselves and put it up there. So
yeah, and I mean you do an amazing job with that.
Thanks,
so
man.
big props for that. He does 90% of the editing. I just listen and point some things out to you, and then you do it. So in that way, 100% of the editing. It's you do a great job with it, and I wouldn't be able to do this podcast because I don't have those skills.
Yeah, I could teach you, but
I don't know, man.
It's not that tough, but it's one of those things where it's like it's just like it's kind of like we talked about it. It's the gate of entry. It's like if you want to try to put something out there that's of what you feel is a quality product, you got to put the work in, and that's exactly what we try to do every week.
Yeah, so we welcome the challenges.
Yeah.
All right. The last question. She wrote, what book would you love to see turned into a movie?
So this was hard for me because I was trying to think of novels that I've read that weren't turned into films already,
Yeah.
There's this really interesting book series I read as a kid called Pendragon, and it's very, very YA fiction, and it's very kind of Harry Potter, kind of like in that vein, and I always just envisioned it in my mind. I was like, this would make a really cool movie because it's like a story of traveling to different worlds and dealing with different cultures and different types of people while meeting up with these chosen ones to take on the bad guy. And I always just thought it would make for a good movie, especially when a lot of those there's that huge surge in YA being adapted. I was like, this would make a really cool movie series. But it's just tough for me because there's so many others that I would like to see adapted. This one's just always something that I've been like, that would probably make a pretty decent movie franchise.
So I had a different answer, but I'm going to change it. I think I'm going to say there's a book called The Blade Itself by Joe Abercrombie, and it's a series, 3 books, First Law trilogy, and he's what's known as a grimdark writer, grimdark fantasy, which is a type of fantasy I really like. Like if you like George R. R. Martin, it's that kind of thing. Mm-hmm. And I love those books, and I would like to see them made into a premium cable channel TV series. I think they would make an excellent TV series like that. Mm-hmm. And honestly, when I heard the announcement about the new Lord of the Rings show coming out, that was one of my first thoughts. Is like there are so many other amazing fantasy series out there that haven't been adapted. Like I'm excited for it, but at the same time, I want to see. There's so many other ones. I mean, and that's just one. I mean, we talk about N.K. Jemisin's the 5th season. Now, some of these actually there are plans to do them. So, like I was going to say, the Name of the Wind. There is plans to do that. So, the reason I say The Blade itself is because I haven't heard any current plans to make it, and I would love to see it.
Yeah, it's so interesting to see the ones that I mean. I know that it's a property that people know and love, Lord of the Rings.
Yeah.
I know that people know and love it, and I understand that the studios want a surefire hit, and they want to go in heavy on it. But at first, I heard that they were remaking it, and I was like, blasphemy.
You thought they were remaking like Fellowship?
I thought they were remaking the films as a miniseries, and I was like, this is absolute, this cannot happen. And went and looked in more into it, and I've gotten more excited about it as time goes on, because it's not like a full-on remake of all that stuff. They're going to try to spread out the lore some.
Have you heard the casting news?
No.
What's his name? The guy who plays Gandalf. He's gonna.
Oh, Ian McKellen. He's
returning for it.
Is he officially? Because
I don't know. I saw something about it.
Okay, I saw that he wanted to. I saw that he said that he wanted to.
Well, it'd be dumb to not bring him in. Come on.
Oh, you have to. Yeah. But
I thought he was confirmed, but maybe not.
If he, I mean, so on board. If he's on, if he's there, I'm so on board.
Yeah.
All right. Next up, we have a question from Colton, and this is a buddy of mine. He also has a podcast called Watch Review Repeat.
Right. Which you've been a guest on.
Yeah, I've been a guest over there, and they have a great podcast. It's Colton and Andrew, and they just talk about films and movies. Colton and I have a lot of the same interests, and we talk about constantly. We're texting each other back and forth about news and things that are going on. And he's a great guy. They talk about all of the movies and shows that are being released, movie news, and they've covered Last Jedi, Disaster Artist recently, and they put out a really good product over there. So go and check them out. Highly recommend. And if you do go over there, send them a message and be like, hey, your buddies over at Ink to Film said what's up.
Yeah, that would be awesome. Yeah, so he wrote in some questions.
The first being, would you say that reading the book before seeing its movie adaptation you haven't seen has changed your viewings on the movies compared to how you used to watch them?
So he's asking basically the experience of reading a novel and then going to see a movie. Does it feel different than just going to see a movie?
Yeah. Do you want to just answer this together? Because like I feel like
you go first.
We're both leaning into the same answer. I feel like.
You think so?
Yeah. Go. So after reading Philip K. Dick's "Do Androids Dream of Electric Sheep," and then watching Blade Runner, and then going into Blade Runner 2049 in IMAX. So I was so excited for it, regardless of, like, we were doing a podcast on it, but I was excited for this movie when I found out that it was in production with Denny. And going in, we got to see something on screen that was of the quality of the original. I'm willing to say that it's like right there with it. And it was like an experience more intense than I normally would have from a movie like that. And that's saying something, because normally I go in with extremely high expectations for something like that. With an Oscar caliber director attached to a sci-fi film that he's loved since he was a child. Like, that's just a recipe for success, as long as the studio lets them do his thing.
Yeah, I mean, I guess you're right. I do agree. I was super hyped for those. I remember when I went and saw it. Mm-hmm. I was like losing my mind in the theater. I was so hyped to see it. I was so excited. Now, I think the one caveat is, like we've said, we've loved every adaptation we've seen this year. So it'll be interesting to see, like, if we love a book and then we see a movie and it's a letdown. Yeah, eventually. How's that? And that's going to happen.
It's bound to happen eventually.
Yeah. The other thing I was going to say is, if you love a book and then you see a movie and it doesn't live up to the book, you still have that experience of loving and reading the book. Like, I'm not someone who sees a movie and goes, that ruined the book for me. Like, that'll never happen. Right. So even, like, to me, I'm not going to lose anything by seeing a mediocre film, even if that does happen, if I love the novel. Mm-hmm. And then if you read a novel that you think is fairly mediocre, like maybe Nothing Lasts Forever, you could argue, seeing the movie just elevates it. Right. So I think it's a win-win situation. Definitely, honestly. Yeah. So he also asks, what about projects where you've gone back and read a book after you've already seen the movie? How is that different? That's like Die Hard.
Right. So Die Hard or Howl's Moving Castle. Yeah. So having seen the movie first and going in to read the book and then see the movie again, I feel like I go in with a particular eye, and I'm like I kind of I have certain preconceived things that I feel like are going to happen, and characters are going to act certain ways, and people are going to, like, I have settings in my mind, like I can shut my eyes and visualize those places. So it's definitely a different experience.
Yeah, I think House Moving Castle is one I go back to because I had seen that movie, liked it. It was one of my favorite animes, and then I go back and read that book, and it brought like a level of like rich detail to it that you don't get from the movie. And then what is cool is like you read the book and it's so different, and then it adds this stuff, and then you go back and watch the movie again. It is kind of a new experience. Like it was almost like watching it for the first time in some ways.
Right.
And that's really cool, especially for something that you love. Same thing happened with Die Hard. Watching it this year was a whole new experience for a movie that I'd seen a million times. But this was a new experience. So it was really cool in that way.
Yeah. So next question is, do you have a preference between reading the book before or after?
Yeah, for me, I think... I mean, both are great, but I think I prefer to read the book first. And like we said, because I don't believe that it spoils the movie, because it almost can't. Like, you're still getting the story for the first time, so it's not spoiled. But what it can do is it can make you love and appreciate the film, I think, even more than you might otherwise.
So for me, it's funny because, like, when I first thought about this question, my immediate reaction was book and then movie. But honestly, being a film guy, like, I would rather see the movie, kind of ingest that, even after saying what I just said, where I said, like, I go in with a certain, like, in the novel, I have, like, certain preconceived notions and certain, like visuals that I can't get out of my head. Like, characters look certain ways in my head after I've seen the film. And even with that being said, there's something about for me, because I think I just enjoy the form of film a little more. It's just like going in and seeing a movie fresh without any sort, like, some of my favorite experiences are just walking into a movie that I've never seen the trailer for, haven't seen any advertising for, and when that movie ends up being an incredible film, it's just like such a fantastic experience.
But you then like to go out and read the book.
Yes, and then I'll read the book, watch the movie again. I would say that might be my preference, but doing it this way, book and then movie, is something that I've done countless times throughout my life. You know what I mean? Where it's like, I know a movie's coming out, let me read the book first and then see the movie, because I just want to get that material. Also, I don't know. I guess I go back and forth, but for the sake of this answer, I'm just going to say movie and then book. Yeah,
and if you wanted to experience the podcast that way, you could, like, listen to our movie episode when the movie comes out, or after you've seen the movie, and then go back, read the book, and listen to the book episodes. Like, I mean, it's on demand viewings or listening, so you can do that.
What's funny is that
it's not ideal for us, but we'll take it.
Yeah, what's funny is that it's like it's probably, this podcast is probably going to be about, I mean, who's to say, like, by the end, but half and half. Not that there will be an end, you know.
Who knows?
For the foreseeable future, we're going to keep this going as long as we can.
Yeah.
And but I mean, so far we've done 5 projects. 2 of the 5 have been something that we've both seen before. Yeah. So we're gonna get a mixed kind of sampling there. We'll do the spectrum. Oh, I should say, we had a question earlier about how we choose projects. One of the things that I think we've leaned into is we like to choose projects where at least one of us hasn't read and seen the movie. Right. Like, it's new. Something about somewhere in the process is new for at least one of us. That's one thing we look, and that's not hard to find, honestly. Yeah, it's not. And that's not to say that we won't do stuff. Like I feel like we have to do Jurassic Park eventually. I've never read the novel though, so there you go. Okay. Well, yeah, so we're fine. Okay, then we're good to go. So yeah, I guess it will come up from time to time, but I think we typically will try. The one, do stuff, like, if we were going to do the first Harry Potter, we've both read that novel, and we've both seen that movie. Well, have you read the rest? I haven't read the rest, but that movie... So we're good for 2 through 7. I think it's 3. I think I'm up to 3 or something. Okay. Well, yeah. I mean, again, who knows when we'll do Harry Potter, if we will. But, yeah, it's cool to try to do something, because somebody gets something new out of it, and we get to kind of see each other's reactions, which is always fun. Which 2017 project ended up surprising you the most, whether in a good way or bad way? All right, I'll start. I think it's House Moving Castle for me, and I think it's because of how much fun. I was a little bit hesitant, like I didn't know, but I really enjoyed talking about that movie and talking about that book, especially the second episode. If you haven't listened to it, wild stuff happens in the second part of that book, and it was super fun to talk about. Yeah, that was a fun one. What really surprised me, and Surprised me for the sheer fact that it was like an unbelievable film going experience was Blade Runner 2049.
Yeah.
Because, like I said, this movie is on a specific plane of existence in my mind that like almost nothing can touch. And we went and saw this film that captured everything I wanted, did everything, subverted expectations, you know, and which to come back to that, and created something wholly new in a world that felt familiar. Yeah. And I was so surprised. And I shouldn't have been, you know. It's Denis Villeneuve, and from now on, I mean, I have seen. I might not have seen. I don't think I've seen Enemy, but almost everything he's done, I've seen, and from now on, I will watch everything he makes.
Yeah. Well, rumors are that he's going to be doing the new Dune adaptation, which I would love to do if that comes out at some point.
He's the perfect guy for it.
We can do.
Yeah, and again, that's another property that he's approaching as a complete and total fan.
We've already talked about how we choose our next projects. We have a big list, and we just look at it and figure out what's going to fit in the time frame we have, and we're always mapping out when new movies are dropping, and so we have to plan backwards from those. But I mean, otherwise, we talked about it. I think
Luke recommends a lot of books that I didn't even know existed. that like books that were adapted into films and films that I've either seen or not seen. But he'll be like, "Yeah, did you know this was based off a book?" I'm like, "Yeah." Nope.
I mean, a lot of that I get from the internet. Yeah. I can't take all the credit. So the last question I think we're going to end on was sent in by Colton and Jeff, essentially the same question. And that is, which project are you looking forward to the most in 2018 and why?
So this is something that I didn't even know was in that. First of all, didn't know it was a book. Didn't know it was being adapted, which is rare because usually I kind of keep track of that kind of thing. Mm-hmm. But Annihilation, when I saw the trailer for Annihilation, I was like, this is my movie. Like, this is what I like. This is my right up my alley.
Jeff Vandermeer novel, and the guy who did Ex Machina, what's his name?
Alex Garland.
Yeah.
Yeah. And Ex Machina was one of my favorite movies of 2013, 2014, I'm going to guess. And I mean, that movie is incredible. And I just love these directors, man. Alex Garland is going to bring something to this sci-fi, adventure, like horror adventure. I don't know. It looks so interesting to me, and I've kept away from any sort of spoilers. So we're going to jump into that book here in February?
Yeah, a couple months.
Excited.
So my answer, I was going back and forth. At first, I was going to say Where the Wild Things Are, which we're doing next. Mm-hmm. And that's just because I'm really excited to watch that movie because it's always been on my list. It looks beautiful and dark and just like amazing. Spike Jonze directed.
Another incredible filmmaker.
Yeah,
and I haven't seen this movie either.
I haven't seen it either. So I'm excited to see it.
Which is rare that we both haven't seen the movie. Yeah, if it wasn't new.
But I'm gonna go with Ready Player One. Now a lot of people in the literary world don't think much of this novel. It's funny because like you'll find people who really, really love it and people who think, or maybe even are critical of it. But the reason I want to podcast about this novel is I feel like it's a book that's made to be podcasted about. It's chock full of references, and it's going to be. I just think it's going to be a lot of fun. I'm excited to record those episodes with you because I think we're both going to get to talk about so many different things. Yeah, and I've heard it's going to be a lot of fun.
I've heard stuff about this movie / novel.
Yeah,
and
Ernest Cline novel, Steven Spielberg film.
Yeah, and it's like this is like all of the references are directly for us, basically.
Yeah,
they I mean, that's just like my childhood that they're putting into a film and blocking it all together. Really, really high expectations. Steven Spielberg is a master filmmaker. Everybody knows that he's the king of blockbusters, and I'm excited to see him. I'm really, really hoping that that's what we hope it is. Like I'm looking forward to it.
Yeah, man. I mean, I just wanted to give if you're still here listening to this episode and you're looking forward to the new year, I wanted to go ahead and tell you a couple other projects we're going to do that we've mentioned here or there. But we're going to do Altered Carbon, which is coming out early February. It'll be before Annihilation. It's going to be a Netflix series. We're going to read that book by Richard K. Morgan and then watch that Netflix series. Really stoked about that one. And then I don't even know. We have an empty gap that we're going to fill with something. We got to figure out what fits in that time frame. So stay tuned. We'll probably announce that. Well, we'll definitely announce that in our Where the Wild Things Are episode.
Yeah.
So hopefully you check that out. And we'll do it on social media and stuff too.
Yeah. There's a week or so here. If you guys really wanted to get your answers in quickly, we have about 2 weeks where we could fit 2-3 weeks.
I think it's 2.
2 weeks, so we could do a short
Like
novel,
a short novel.
and a movie. So if you have any recommendations you want to throw out there, go for it.
Yeah, send them in.
We'll be filling it very soon.
Yeah, and if you wanted to send that to us, you can always send it to inktofilm@gmail.com. That's where you can send us any feedback about any future project we've talked about. Even if it's months away, go ahead and send it now. That way we have it and we won't miss it or get it too late like we've happened a couple times. And we'd love to hear from you just about anything, really.
Yeah. And if you ever wanted to reach out to us in any other way, Ink to Film is on Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, and it's @Ink2Film. We're pretty active on there, so anything you send out, we will see. We'll probably reply to if it's, if it's a question or...
Speaking of that, tonight we are going to be playing The Thing board game, which I got from my brother because he was so awesome and he got me Blade Runner 2049 whiskey. So I thought I'd return the favor and get him something from our podcast, kind of. And we're going to take pictures of that and post them on social media. But I'm super excited to play. It looks really fun.
I mean, it's probably one of the coolest board games I've ever seen. It's like... It
looks amazing. Beyond that, hey, if you're like listening to this and you're enjoying it and you're like, how do I help these guys out? Make sure you subscribe on whatever you listen, and then leave us a review. And you can leave us a review on the thing you listen on. You can go onto Facebook and they have the function where you can leave it on a page. Anywhere that you can say something positive about us in public, like that's a huge way to help us out because it draws attention to our podcast. And beyond that, word of mouth. Tell somebody about it, especially if you think they'd enjoy it, this sort of thing.
Definitely. We'd love to grow the audience and just engage with as many people as possible.
We got to say thank you to Audible for providing us with a link that we can send out.
Yeah, and we also want to say thank you to NCS Music. They have a YouTube channel, and that's going to be for our intro and outro music this time. Yeah,
I guess that's it. I'm looking forward to 2018. I'm really excited. Happy New Year's, everybody.
Happy New Year. And it was good to see you in the flesh, Luke. Maybe we could get another one going here soon where we record together.
We'll see. Maybe next year, maybe not.
Yeah, hopefully. Hopefully sometime.
Well, we'll definitely record an episode if we're still doing it, which we should be. But whether or not I'll be here in the flesh, I don't know.
Yeah, maybe see. I'll be up there.
Maybe. All right, guys. It's been fun.
Thanks for listening.
I'm Luke.
And I'm James.
See ya.